Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on Neil Gaiman's classic short story collection, Smoke and Mirrors, to figure out just how he does his magic.
So, right in the foreword, Gaiman kicks things off with this line that every magician uses. You know the one. He's basically telling us, hey, get ready for a show. But then, he adds this little phrase at the end, and it's also true. And that's where things get really interesting, right? It hints that all this magic, all this illusion, it's actually pointing to something real.
Okay, so let's really unpack that, because Gaiman's not just playing with words here. He's giving us the keys to the whole kingdom. He's proposing this incredible idea. What if stories themselves are the real magic trick, that they use these tools to show us the world, but also to hide parts of it?
See, Gaiman doesn't just throw a bunch of stories at you. Nope. Right there in the title, he's handing us the instruction manual for how they work.
And he breaks his whole method down into these two simple but powerful ideas. You've got the mirror, right, which shows us the truth, but maybe in a way we've never seen it before. And then you have the smoke, which is all about blurring the edges, making reality a little fuzzy.
All right, so how does this mirror thing actually work? Let's take a look at one of the stories, Chivalry, because it's a perfect example of this in action.
So picture this. The story kicks off in the most normal place you can think of, a thrift shop. We meet this sweet elderly lady, Mrs. Whitaker, and she finds this dusty old cup for just 30 pence. It's all very, very ordinary.
But here's the thing. That little cup, it's the Holy Grail, the actual Holy Grail. And what does Mrs. Whitaker think when she finds this object of legend? Oh, this would look lovely on the mantelpiece. That's it.
And that is the mirror in action. It's brilliant, right? He puts this mythical, all-powerful object into this super mundane world just to reflect a simple truth back at us, a truth about what we really care about. For Mrs. Whitaker, it's comfort, her routine, a good cup of tea, not legendary power. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What holy grails do we have sitting on our own shelves, just gathering dust?
Okay, so that's the mirror. Now let's talk about the smoke. And for this, we're going to look at Troll Bridge. This is where Gaiman takes something you think you know and just twists it.
So you know the fairy tale, The Three Billy Goats Gruff, right? Well, Gaiman takes that simple story and stretches it out over a man's entire life. We first meet him as a little boy who cleverly tricks a troll. He promises to come back when he's got more life to offer. Then we see him as a teenager, selfishly trying to sacrifice his girlfriend to save his own skin. And finally, he comes back as a bitter, middle-aged man with a life that feels totally empty. You see what he's doing? The smoke is how he obscures that simple fairy tale. He completely transforms it into this dark, really resonant story about the promises we make, the ones we break, and how those little compromises can just eat away at our lives.
All right, so we've got mirrors that reflect reality and smoke that twists it. But now we get to the final piece of the puzzle. What if a story isn't just a reflection? What if it's a spell that can actually change reality?
To explore this, Gaiman tells us this little story within the foreword itself, called The Wedding Present. He frames it as something he almost gave to his friends as a gift, but didn't. It's a story about a story, which is pretty cool. And he's telling it directly to you and me.
So in this story, a newly married couple, Gordon and Belinda, get this weird anonymous gift. It's a manuscript, and it tells the story of their life together. Fast forward 2 years. Their actual life? It's been great. They're happy. But when they look at the story again, it's changed. It now describes this awful alternate reality where a dog bite sent Belinda into a spiral of pain and drinking.
And it just gets worse. As their real life flourishes, Gordon becomes a successful architect, they have healthy kids, they're happy. The story becomes this nightmare. It's filled with scandal, miscarriage, alcoholism. It's like that picture of Dorian Gray, a cursed portrait in the attic, absorbing all the potential horror of their lives.
And then Belinda has this incredible thought. What if the story isn't a curse, but a gift, a magical shield? She starts to believe that this narrative is literally taking all the pain and suffering that could happen to them, leaving only the good stuff for them to actually live. But then, the unthinkable happens. Gordon dies suddenly. And just like that, the magic is gone. A heartbroken Belinda is left with a choice, and she chooses to burn the story. She chooses to face reality, no matter how painful it is, rather than live in some beautiful fiction. It's a devastating, powerful moment.
So that brings us to the big question, right? Why does any of this matter? Why do we need these tricks, this smoke, these mirrors?
Well, Gaiman closes his introduction with a famous quote from G.K. Chesterton that really sums it all up. Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. The magic isn't about escaping reality, it's about learning how to fight.
So in the end, stories aren't just an escape, are they? They're the tools we use. They're the mirrors that show us who we are, and they're the smoke that gives us the space to imagine, to hope, and maybe, just maybe, to figure out how to beat our own dragons. So what truths do your favorite stories show you?